Alright. Let's get a peeky peek. We have a 3-2 here, so we'll throw away the bolts. Alright, and then we reanimate. This is just evil. Can't believe this deck is actually allowed on this game. And then here's how we do this. Not dead after all. On top of it. We then deadly dispute. Draw some cards. And there you go, everybody. Oh my god. Hello my fiery friends, the Infernoman here with the hottest in budget deck technology. And for today's deck talk, it is time to play the deck that you all voted on. And I'm not gonna lie, this deck is absolutely disgusting. Even on a budget, this deck is extremely powerful. But what deck am I talking about?
Good question!
Well, for those of you out there who did not participate in the poll, you're about to see what I'm talking about. So join me today in the timeless format for a budget version of Rakdos Scam that I'm simply calling You Got Scammed. Longtime viewers of the channel know how we do it. We have to talk about the stats of the deck before we dive right in. So obviously when I say Rakdos Scam, that definitely means we're going to be playing black and red. You're looking at an average mana curve of about 2.2. You're looking at using 16 creatures, 8 instants, 8 sorceries, 4 artifacts, 6 enchantments, and only 18 lands. The simple thing I could just explain about this deck is you're about to see why this deck is even called Scam in the first place. Basically, it just comes down to the fact that you have a couple of free spells. Well, at least in our version, only one major free spell that we have a full set of that's going to be super disgusting to play. And then, of course, you're going to try to repeat the process with a couple other select cards. And even though it is, as I mentioned earlier, a budget deck, we still have a couple of powerful players in this deck that makes it very, very difficult to just play around. Let's also address the elephant in the room, so to speak. Obviously, of course, we didn't have room for the other key cards of Rakdos Scam, and I know what you're thinking right now.
Not enough fury.
But in order for us to function as a budget deck, I had to make a choice here. So it was either trying to get extra copies of Fury, even though the fact that I just don't have enough wild cards for that, or we'll just work with what we got and try to give a little bit of less inconsistency in the trade-off for more versatility with some of the key cards we decided to pick overall versus the Furies. Now that we have all of that out of the way, we're going to jump right into it and talk about, of course, our creatures. So starting in the 1-drop, we have Dragon's Rage Channeler. If you see me play many of my decks, you obviously know how this card works. It'll get bigger, of course, if we can trigger off the Delirium ability. So since we do have a lot of non-creature spells, we'll be able to surveil quite a bit to get us a lot of value into the graveyard. In the 2-drop slot, again, another card you've seen before, Orcish Bowmasters, is an extremely powerful card. It's really disgusting to play, but again, it is essential for this deck, so we are trying to be as degenerate as possible. So we got to throw that in there. We're also going to run a single copy of Kroaxa. Yes, the deck does look very inconsistent with only one copy, but again, we also don't want to contradict too much the Dragon's Rage Channeler. So think of this as, again, more of like a secondary option for us to get to our win in case if everything else gets blown up along the way. In the 4-drop slot, of course, this is going to be where we talk about the main star of the show, Grief itself. So we're going to talk about this card for just a moment. Grief is a 4-mana elemental incarnation 3/2 with Menace. It reads that when Grief enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it, and that player discards the card. But the real reason to play this card, of course, and i.e. the scamming part, is the evoke ability. So to evoke this card, in other words, to pay for an alternate cost, which makes it basically free, you have to exile a black card from your hand. So in other words, ideally, you get this card out, of course, on turn 1 by just evoking something else. Even though it'll get destroyed, they'll then be able to at least get a free removal spell out of the deal. However, there are ways, of course, to scam your opponent, as I mean, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. The other finisher in the deck is going to be Shielder the Apocalypse, along with Kroaxa. These are going to be your best ways of both discarding cards from your opponent, and if they try to draw cards, it'll punish them for what they're trying to do. And then finally, in the 6-drop slot, although you're not going to really pay 6 mana for this, is going to be the Troll of Khazandam. So this Troll, of course, we've seen this card before. We played it, of course, in a Reanimator deck months ago, but it's a really awesome little card where you can swamp cycle it for 1. And ideally, that's how you want to play it, by throwing it into the graveyard. Then you can bring it back with one of our other cards, which is Reanimate. We'll talk about that in just a second. If it does end up on the battlefield, however, you can then utilize its ability to then just attack, because it cannot be blocked except by 3 or more creatures, which makes it very hard to chump block in the early to mid game if you want to close out games very quickly. Circling back over to the 1-drops, for the support options, you'll have, of course, the free spell Mishra's Bauble. It just helps us get a peek at our opponent's hand, and then we can draw a card out of the deal, and it'll also help trigger the Delirium ability with Dragon's Rage Channeler. You're also going to be utilizing Duress here. Is going to be able to be another way to strip your hand of resources from just picking out cards. You'll have your copies of Reanimation in Not Dead After All and Reanimate itself. Specifically, however, let's talk about Reanimate. Reanimate is a simple sorcery that's cost 1 black mana. You put a target creature card from your graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, and you will lose life equal to the mana value. This means that this card does not have to reanimate one of your creatures. You can also steal one of your opponents if they have something much more powerful in their graveyard. Going back to not dead after all, this is more of an instant speed way of protecting one of our creatures. So if say like they try to blow up your grief, or say maybe if you play this on turn 1, you can then cast this at instant speed to then bring it back and then basically scam your opponent out of 2 cards for only the cost of 1 whole mana. In the 2-drop slot, we'll have a little bit more ways of gaining value out of cards that go to the graveyard. You have Deadly Dispute here. I have, of course, talked about this card a lot, and I love it, of course, so it's essential for the deck. And again, 2 copies of Seaholder's Edict here as a way of just helping just remove some key cards that your opponent tries to play on the battlefield. For additional removal, we'll also be utilizing Elspeth's Nightmare here, so we've talked about this card as well. Of course, for 3 parts here, for 3 mana, you can destroy a creature with power 2 or lower. You get then also to get to discard another card from their hand, and also you'll be able to exile their graveyard, which is great for us to provide a ton of value and graveyard hate all in one package. Of course, I don't need to say any more about this card, but we're going to talk about it briefly. Of course, Fable the Mirror Breaker here is a great card to help us kind of just do a bunch of things. We get to create some extra ramp with tokens. We get to create another chump blocker if we need to. We can discard some cards to then trigger Delirium. And of course, once it flips, if it does survive as Reflection of Kiki Jiki, this card gets insanely powerful, because then we will just copy extra copies of, say, Grief, or even our legendaries here to just get more value, just basically strip our opponent of more things. It's just really an evil card. I really can't stress that enough. As far as your mana base is concerned, again, we are a budget deck, so this is going to be where we're going to have to compromise quite a bit, but it does work out despite how it may look. So we have 8 swamps, 2 mountains, 4 Boding Ruins. As I mentioned before, this is a rare in paper, but in Arena it is an uncommon, so we're going to take advantage of that. And finally, some Geothermal Bogs. The reason why you want this tap land specifically is because the troll here can pull it out with Swamp Cycling. As far as your sideboard, if you do want to take this in best of 3, he's going to be your best options for you. So as far as more additional removal, you have Fatal Pushes here, pretty much a catch-all, an essential for this kind of a deck. You'll have a copy of Sorcerer's Spyglass here. Now that it's actually an uncommon, which means it's now budget friendly for us, great way to shut down select cards, especially Planeswalkers. Davriel Rogue Shadow Mage here. Again, it may look a little strange in this deck, but since we are focusing on trying to strip our opponent of cards, it's going to be great, and also going to be a pseudo finisher if your opponent does not deal with it. Free copies of Tormod's Crypt here is going to be your best option for additional graveyard hate if you need something at instant speed. For enchantment hate, you have Feed the Swarm here, and you're also going to use Angrath's Rampage here for additional, again, artifact, creature, and planeswalker hate. You'll also have a copy of Back for Seconds here. This can be great with the Bargain mechanic, because we do have a lot of targets we can then bargain to then bring back at least one of our Shielders here, or you can even bring back with Grief, which is really great and awesome for the value it provides. And then finally, if you are dealing with a go wide strategy, you can also use your Cry the Carnarium just to sweep away the whole board. But of course, the biggest question we need to ask ourselves is it possible to still pull off Rakdos scam on this tight of a budget?
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off.
Well, there's only one way to find out. So join me today in the Timeless format, and let's play a couple matches to see how well this deck does. But before we continue, if you do like any of the content that I do, please like, follow, and subscribe wherever you watch the content so you don't miss out on any of the gameplay, booster pack openings, deck decks, and so much more. Alright, my fire friends, here we go. Can we scam our opponent with our dirty little deck? We're about to find out right now. So the good news is, yes, we definitely have exactly the lands we need. We have some Mishra's Baubles, we have a Duress, and we have a Reanimate. Oh my goodness, this is going to be a little naughty. We are going second though, so we'll see. Maybe our opponent might out-scam us. Alright, Misty Rainforest. I'm going to crack the Misty Rainforest. Alright. Swamp for us. Okay, so here's how we do this. Foreboding Ruins. We're going to reveal the swamp, of course. We will then do the dirty deed here. Oh, this is just so terrible.
This is where the fun begins.
I feel really dirty actually kind of doing this. So we exile the Duress. So, that goes bye-bye. Alright. Let's get a peeky peek. We have a 3-2 here, so we'll throw away the bolts. Alright, and then we reanimate. This is just evil. Can't believe this deck is actually allowed on this game. Okay. Throw away another card that they have. We have throw away Territorial Kavu, Mishra's Bauble, second Mishra's Bauble, and this will help us kind of refuel what we need when we need it. Pass the turn. Alright, opponent. I mean, they can still dig for other pieces. That's fine. Alright. They get Amped Raptor. Put down Fledged Strand. Steam Vents. Raptor come down. It has First Strike, so that's kind of what stops us a little bit here from doing our thing. Thoughtseize. Well, joke's on you, opponent. We only have lands in hand. Secret Tech, everybody. Secret Tech. Alright, so with that, let's now crack our Mishra's Bauble. Let's get a peeky peek at what they're doing. Alright, land. Get a peeky peek at us. Also land, not quite what we wanted. Alright, but either way, we get 2 cards out of the deal. Swamp. And Deadly Dispute. And not dead after all. Okay, well actually that's not too shabby either, so here's what we're going to do. So with that, we swing down to 11. Alright, we just need to get 1 more land down. We can then Deadly Dispute and then not dead after all to do some more shenanigans here. Breakout. We have Deathrite Shaman. Alright, that's something. That might harm us for a bit if they don't swing. Okay, so Geothermal Bog. Okay, so for this part, of course, we're definitely going to have to go full control. And then here's what we do. So with that, we swing. Do they block? They do not. All right. Well, that's free damage for us. And then here's how we do this. Not dead after all. On top of it. We then Deadly Dispute. Draw some cards. And there you go, everybody. Oh my god. That worked out so well. Oh man, this deck is so dirty. I honestly really do feel kind of bad playing it, but hey, it's the deck you all voted on, and you can see, even on a budget, man, this deck is so gnarly. Alright, my fire friends, here we go. Can we get a scam or 2 in against our opponent? And it looks like we still can, because we got not dead after all. Ooh, and of course we got the Grief itself, and we also got a Dragon's Rage Channeler. Doesn't look like it's going to help us too much in the early part of the game, but we also have a little bit more removal as well. So, I think we can keep this, and we should be fine with what we're going to do here. But our opponent's going second, so can they out-scam us? That sometimes happens with this deck, so be aware of that, of course. Alright, putting down a Wooded Foothills. Crack the Wooded Foothills. Opponent might be playing a burn deck or some kind of aggro deck. We'll see. Alright, Temple Garden. Wild Econo. Oh, okay, they're playing Zoo. Alright, well, that's interesting. Alright, so with that, we'll play the Swamp. And just like we did before, so all we have to do is we got to go full control. Remember, anytime you're going to try to do any shenanigans with Grief, go full control so that way you don't mess yourself up here. So here's what we're going to do. We will then pitch away the Duress. Alright. Grief our opponent here. This deck is so horribly evil. And then not dead after all while it's on the stack. So with that. Alright, peeky peek time. Okay, so throw away a Lightning Bolt. Not dead after all, bring it back. And then we then take a peeky peek again. Oh my goodness. I should feel so bad, but I honestly don't. Okay, so with that, we'll play, I guess we'll get the Bolt. Alright, and then with that, we'll end our turn. Our opponent's going to have to throw down that Leyline Mine ASAP in order to shut us down, which they're probably going to do. Alright, so watch. They're probably going to get a Triome, and that's when we're going to throw down the removal with Leyline Binding. Yep. And watch, here it comes. Opponent, are you there? Alright, they hit us for 2. Okay, well, they actually didn't do anything there. That's interesting. So with that, we'll just swing. 3 damage, I guess. Down to 12. Alright, opponent, clock is ticking. I'm surprised they did not throw down that Leyline Binding. Or maybe, wait, did they not have enough lands? Oh, maybe they were missing 1. Okay. Maybe that's why we were able to get a free shot. So. Here it comes. Leyline Binding's coming down. No surprise there, but this is fine, everybody. This is fine. Grief will get exiled. Wicked will then ping us for 1. Down to 15 for our opponent. Okay, so how do we do this here? I think Swamp. We shall... How do we do this? Okay. Croaxa. Make our opponent throw away another card. And now put it to the graveyard, which is fine. They have quite a bit in there already. We only have 2 cards there. Territorial Kavu. They do have the edge against us there because they do have a lot more power, but this is fine. So, what do we do here to get around everything? I think... Here's how we do this. Dragon's Rage Channeler. Reanimate Croaxa. This will allow us to surveil, which is nice. Stubborn now. Ooh, okay. That was their last card, huh? Alright, so we'll throw away the Elspeth's Nightmare because that's not going to help us that much. And we now get a flyer that's 3/3. At the very least, we could chump block the Wild Nacatl if we need to here. It will exile a card, which is going to be Croaxa. Unfortunately, that does shut down Dragon's Rage Channeler, so we're going to wait a bit here. Man, I wish I could kind of weaken them for a bit. The Wild Nacatl taking it down with the Elspeth's Nightmare would have been perfectly fine for us. So, we're going to wait for our opponent to do their swing. Even if we lose, it's not the biggest deal. I mean, again, one of the things is if we can't keep chaining together stuff to strip their whole hand, we end up kind of having a bad spot here. And you can see that Zoo's biggest advantage is they get big creatures just based off of lands, which is something that we can't really control. So exile another card. That does weaken Dragon's Rage Channeler. Let's cycle away the Troll. And then we'll get out with it just a regular Swamp. So what we do here is we will block Territorial Kavu. I don't know what their last card is. I doubt it's going to be Counterspell, so we'll just simply sack the Dragon's Rage Channeler. We go to 1. Yikes. Let's be very close. Sheoldred. Okay, well that's not the worst, but that's not fast enough though. Alright, so our opponent is planning on bringing Jingatha here. And then with that, Swamp. Sheoldred. Oh man, not fast enough, everybody, unfortunately. Even with Sheoldred out, we would still need one whole turn cycle just to beat down our opponent. And also, when they shut down an 8-art card, Croaxa, that kind of put us in an awkward spot because we weren't able to block anymore with our Dragon's Rage Channeler, which kind of screwed us over here. And of course they have a Leyline Binding, no surprise there. Alright, well, that means we don't win this one.
Well, this stinks.
Take whatever card you want, opponent, doesn't matter. And we lose. Well, again, that was unfortunate, but Zoo does have a bit of an advantage versus our budget deck because, again, we don't have as much heavy removal, and also, once they get their creatures down, they're big enough that they can avoid Elspeth's Nightmare. So, I mean, it is what it is. We'll get them definitely next time. All right, my fire friends, here we go. Can we outscam our opponent with our deck? Well, we don't exactly have any scam cards. We can then mulligan and see what we get. Okay. Ooh, okay. This is a little bit better here. So, we can't do the double scamming here, which is fine. We could still definitely take some advantage with our very, very powerful hand of removal here and creatures. So we'll still keep this. What do we put back, though? I think we'll put back the Elspeth's Nightmare. Since Grief can come in for free, what we'll do is we'll then throw away Elspeth's Nightmare. And we'll get a peeky peek at our opponent here. So, what do you got, opponent? Okay, well. This is going to be fun. Throw away the Soul Warden. Maybe I should have gotten rid of the removal, but that's fine. We actually don't need to worry too much about the removal. All we just need to do is to start scamming them. One of the biggest weaknesses to our deck is we don't really have much to stabilize if our opponent starts getting a ton of life against us. So we just need to kind of shut them down a little bit beforehand. Opponent, you there? Did I already kind of mess with them enough with just one card being discarded? Oh, okay. They're there still. That's fine. Swamp. And we will pass here. We'll get the Orcish Bowmaster on the end step. Oh, okay. Well, opponent, choose to lose your turn there? Alright, well, I don't feel kind of good about this, but I'm going to just get in a free hit here. Oh my goodness, we have another Orcish Bowmaster. This is terrible. We'll swing here, down to 17. I don't know where our opponent went. They started playing and they kind of stopped. So I don't know what they're up to. Oh, they are still there. That's still kind of awkward, though. I mean, I kind of got a free hit on them, even though they didn't really do anything. They're at class number 2. That's fine. Healer's Hawk. That's right, opponent. False sense of security now. Okay. So, yeah, feel really dirty about this, but not gonna lie, we are here to win. So, what we're gonna do now is, we only have 2 lands, which is kind of awkward, but that's okay. Let's get a peeky peek at what they're trying to do. We surveil 1. Okay, so we're just gonna have to keep that tap land. And then we'll throw away that minimum containment. So, it is now smooth sailing from here, everybody. Down to 13. Opponent does have still a lot of land, so they can still trigger off their Cleric class if they want to. They're still way behind versus us. We'll go swinging here. Down to 8. Not the most exciting way to scam someone, but it is sort of working, I guess. They level 3. They bring back... Well, it doesn't really matter what they bring back. Healer's Hawk is fine. And bring it back for 2. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna feel so bad about this. But hey. I mean, that's why we built our deck the way we did. So. Elspeth's Nightmare, the Hawk. And then we swing again. Down to 6. Even on a budget, we could still kind of outdo some of these decks. Soul Warden. That's totally fine. I'm okay with that. Level 2. So, we reveal their hand. Peeky peek again. Oh my goodness, they have farewells, but we're going to throw one of those away. So, do we go all out here with a swing? I think we will have to. If our opponent gets another land, then we are screwed. Down to 2, but they blocked, so they can't play that on instant speed, so ping them away, and there you go, everybody. Woo! We got our opponent there before they got that farewell off. That was too close. And there you have it, already. So that was our version of Budget Rakdos Scam for Arena. And you tell me in the comments below, what do you think? Would you play this deck in any way, shape, or form? I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I'm actually surprised at how well the deck does, even though it's horribly inconsistent. However, honestly, I really am not fond of what these free spells can do. It's not really, again, my style, but again, I'm sure any of you out there who already saw this video are probably already convinced about ways of trying to take advantage of this yourself. And to be honest, I don't know if honestly it's even good to invest in this, because I still anticipate that they might actually restrict this in the future. But even if they do, if you are that kind of player and you do want to play a little bit on the degenerate side, I honestly don't have to say anything else. You're probably going to be playing this either way. For those of you that are still watching, you are my true fire rate friends, and because of that, you'll be able to see how you can upgrade this deck to make it the full version right here, right now. Now, as far as how to upgrade the deck, I'm just going to be flat with you. Just play the real scam deck. And what I mean by that is, as you can see right here, this is the most optimized meta version currently that you can play in Timeless. So to break it down very quickly for you, it's mostly going to be all the who's who of degenerate cards you could probably throw together in one deck. So besides, of course, the reanimates, we're going to then trim down a Not Dead After All. We're going to throw in, of course, Thoughtseize instead of your Duresses. You're, of course, going to be playing Lightning Bolts for your removal. You have, of course, the Monkey. But, of course, he is good, so we have to have him in the deck. For your Graveyard Hate in the main deck, you have Deathrite Shaman here. For the 2-drop slot, obviously keep the Orcish Bowmasters. Of course, they are completely busted, so we're going to have a full set of them. Molten Collapse, of course, is going to be one of your other additional removal spells. It's actually really good for the format. And, of course, an entire set of Fable the Mirror Breaker now that we can afford it if you want to go all out. And I know we didn't mention this earlier, but again, the reason why we don't actually have Fury earlier was because I seriously just don't have enough wildcards for it. Seriously, this whole deck is extremely expensive. But again, the deck actually does function very well even if you don't have Furies. Either way, if you can grab them, definitely throw them in, because again, it is extremely powerful for what it can do. And then of course, keep your Trolls. Those are also great for you because you're going to be able to utilize these to then pull out the swamps that you're going to need. Mostly it's the shock lands, just to make sure you can optimize your mana when you need it. Speaking of lands, obviously it's going to be, of course, all the rare dual lands that you can muster in, and of course of the actual fetch lands themselves are also what you're going to need just to round out the mana base. For the sideboard itself, again, nothing super surprising here. It's going to be the most optimal options here. So with that, we're talking about, of course, the Fatal Pushes again, another extra copy of Molten Collapse, Kolaghan's Command is again another flex piece for you, Pithing Needles again to shut off. Mostly it's going to be for Planeswalkers and other select cards out there, unlicensed search for additional Graveyard Hate, and of course for those greedy mana bases out there, Blood Moon rounds out the whole package. However you ever look at it though, it is extremely powerful in this variant if you can afford to put it together, and my goodness, you're definitely going to piss off a lot of people if you want to go this route. And with that out of the way, here are my final thoughts that I just want to give on the deck. I honestly really don't even know what to say at this point. It's definitely still an extremely powerful deck, and those of you who are either going to love it or hate it, I really don't need to say any more. It's just, it speaks for itself. You saw today, even on a budget, it's extremely powerful, despite how the fact our deck is not as super consistent as the fully powered one. Still, if you are a fan of free spells, if you are a fan of playing a modern deck in Arena, and if you're a fan of humiliating your opponent by just stripping him of all the resources, then definitely give this deck a try. And I assure you, whether you do play the powered down version today or you want to play it fully upgraded, even though that takes a ton of wildcards, then you'll be very happy with what you get. You'll be very surprised that this deck actually hasn't been banned yet, but either way, until that day comes, I assure you, you will not be disappointed. That's all I have for you today. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and just remember that no matter what you do play in the game of life, always be sure to burn bright. Later!